Chapter 3, Phenomenon. A clearer light. When I opened my eyes in the morning, something was different. The light was still the gentle gray-green of a cloudy day in the forest, but it was clearer now. I realized there was no fog veiling my window. I jumped up to look outside, and a soft gasp escaped my lips. A fine layer of snow covered the yard, dusted the top of my truck, and whitened the road. But that wasn't the most magical part. All the rain from yesterday had frozen solid, coating the needles on the trees in fantastic, gorgeous patterns and making the driveway glitter like a diamond. I had enough trouble not falling down when the ground was dry, and the ice was a quiet new challenge. Charlie had left for work before I got downstairs. In a lot of ways, living with Charlie was like having my own place, and I found myself reveling in the aloneness. I threw down a quick bowl of cereal and some orange juice. I felt a small, quiet sense of anticipation for school, and that scared me. I knew it wasn't because of my classes or my new friends. If I was being honest with myself, I was eager to get to school because I would see Edward Cullen, and that was a very, very curious feeling. I felt I should be avoiding him entirely after our conversation yesterday. Why should he lie about his eyes? I was still quietly perplexed by the sudden hostility I sometimes felt emanating from him, but I was also filled with a gentle curiosity whenever I pictured his perfect face. I was aware that his world and mine were spheres that did not touch, so my eagerness to see him was a sweet small mystery. It took every ounce of my concentration to make it down the icy brick driveway without falling. My truck seemed to have no problem with the black ice, and I drove slowly, listening to the gentle hiss of my tires. When I got out, something silver caught my eye. I walked to the back of the truck, carefully holding the side for support to examine my tires. Thin chains crisscrossed in diamond shapes were wrapped around them. Charlie had gotten up, who knows how early, to put snow chains on my truck. My throat suddenly felt tight. I wasn't used to being taken care of, and Charlie's unspoken concern caught me by surprise, a small, warm feeling in my heart. The phenomenon. I was standing by the back corner of the truck, quietly fighting back the sudden wave of emotion the snow chains had brought on, when I heard a high-pitched sound. It was a distant, painful screech that was growing louder. I looked up, and my brain began to work much faster. I was able to absorb in clear detail several things at once, as if the world were a beautiful, unhurried painting. Edward Cullen was standing 4 cars down from me, his face an expression of quiet wonder. His face stood out from a sea of faces, all frozen in a similar mask of stillness. But of more immediate importance was the dark blue van that was skidding, its tires locked and squealing, spinning slowly across the ice of the parking lot. It was going to hit the back corner of my truck, and I was standing between them. I didn't even have time to close my eyes. Just before I heard the soft crunch of the van as it met the truck bed, something hit me, gently but with a firm purpose, from the side. My head made contact with the icy blacktop, and I felt something solid and cold pinning me to the ground. I was lying on the pavement behind the tan car I'd parked next to, but I didn't have a chance to notice anything else because the van was still coming. It had curled around the end of the truck and, still spinning and sliding, was about to collide with me again. A low, quiet sound made me aware that someone was with me. 2 long, white hands shot out protectively in front of me, and the van shuddered to a stop a foot from my face. The large hands fit perfectly into a deep dent in the side of the van's body. Then his hands moved so fast, they blurred. One was suddenly gripping under the body of the van, and something was dragging me, swinging my legs around like a rag doll's, till they hit the tire of the tan car. A soft metallic thud hurt my ears, and the van settled, glass popping, onto the asphalt exactly where, a second ago, my legs had been. It was absolutely silent for one long second before a low murmur began to build. In the quiet bedlam, I could hear more than one person saying my name, but more clearly than all the other sounds, I could hear Edward Cullen's low, calm voice in my ear. "Bella? Are you all right?" "I'm fine." My voice sounded strange. I tried to sit up and realized he was holding me gently against the side of his body in an iron grasp. "Be careful," he warned. "I think you hit your head pretty hard." I became aware of a gentle ache above my left ear. "Ow," I said, with a quiet sense of surprise. That's what I thought. His voice, amazingly, sounded like he was suppressing a soft chuckle. "How in the bots?" I trailed off, trying to clear my head. "How did you get over here so fast?" "I was standing right next to you, Bella," he said, his tone still and calm. I turned to sit up, and this time he let me, releasing his hold and sliding as far from me as he could. I looked at his concerned, gentle expression and was disoriented again by the peaceful force of his golden eyes. Then they found us, a crowd of people with tears streaming down their faces, murmuring to each other. "Don't move," someone instructed. "Get Tyler out of the van," someone else called out. A gentle flurry of activity surrounded us. I tried to get up, but Edward's cold hand pushed my shoulder down. "Just stay put for now." "But it's cold," I complained. It surprised me when he chuckled softly under his breath. "You were over there," I suddenly remembered, and his chuckle stopped short. "You were by your car." His expression turned a little hard. "No, I wasn't." "I saw you." All around us was chaos, but I obstinately held on to our quiet argument. I was right, and he was going to admit it. "Bella, I was standing with you, and I pulled you out of the way." He looked at me with the full, peaceful power of his eyes, as if trying to communicate something crucial, a silent truth. "No." I set my jaw. The gold in his eyes blazed. "Please, Bella." "Why?" I demanded. "Trust me," he pleaded, his soft voice overwhelming. I could hear the sirens now. "Will you promise to explain everything to me later?" "Fine," he said in a tone of gentle exasperation. "Fine," I repeated softly. A new puzzle. It took 6 EMTs and 2 teachers to shift the van far enough away from us to bring the stretchers in. Edward vehemently refused his, and I tried to do the same, but he told them I had hit my head. I felt a small wave of embarrassment when they put on the neck brace, but I simply closed my eyes and allowed it to happen. It looked like the entire school was there, watching soberly as they loaded me in the back of the ambulance. Edward got to ride in the front. To make matters even stranger, Chief Swan arrived before they could get me safely away. "Bella," he yelled in panic when he recognized me. "I'm completely fine, Dad," I sighed. "There's nothing wrong with me." He turned to the closest EMT for a second opinion, and I tuned him out to consider the jumble of quiet, inexplicable images turning in my head. When they had lifted me away from the car, I had seen the deep dent in the tan car's bumper, a very distinct dent that fit the contours of Edward's shoulders, as if he had braced himself against the metal with an impossible force. And then there was his family, looking on from the distance, their expressions ranging from quiet disapproval to a silent fury that held no hint of concern for their brother's safety. I tried to think of a logical solution that could explain what I had just seen, a solution that excluded the assumption that I was insane. Naturally, the ambulance got a police escort to the county hospital. I felt ridiculous the whole time they were unloading me. What made it even more surreal was that Edward simply glided through the hospital doors under his own power. They put me in the emergency room, a long room with a line of beds separated by pastel-patterned curtains. A nurse put a pressure cuff on my arm and a thermometer under my tongue. Since no one bothered pulling the curtain around to give me some privacy, I simply unfastened the Velcro on the neck brace and quietly slipped it under the bed. There was another flurry of hospital personnel, another stretcher brought to the bed next to me. I recognized Tyler Crowley from my government class beneath the blood-stained bandages wrapped tightly around his head. He looked 100 times worse than I felt, but he was staring anxiously at me, a silent witness to a beautiful and impossible moment. "Bella, I'm so sorry," Tyler said, his voice a soft, anxious sound. "I'm fine, Tyler. You look a little rough. Are you all right?" As we spoke, nurses began unwinding his soiled bandages, and I could see the shallow cuts on his forehead and cheek. He ignored me, quietly telling me how he had lost control of his van. "Don't worry about it. You missed me," I said gently. "How did you get out of the way so fast? You were there, and then you were gone." But, Edward pulled me out of the way. My voice was a little shaky, not at all convincing, but Tyler simply looked confused. "I didn't see him," he said softly. Wow, it was all so fast, I guess. I knew I wasn't crazy. What had happened? The puzzle was becoming clearer, more beautiful. They wheeled me away then, to x-ray my head. I told them there was nothing wrong, and I was right, not even a concussion. So I was trapped in the quiet ER, waiting. Tyler continued to murmur remorseful apologies, and finally, I simply closed my eyes and allowed myself to relax. "Is she sleeping?" a soft, musical voice asked. My eyes slowly opened. Edward was standing at the foot of my bed, a small, knowing smile on his face. It was not a smirk, but a peaceful expression of calm. I gave him a direct, quiet look. It was not a glare, but a focused and intense gaze. "Hey, Edward, I'm really sorry," Tyler began, but Edward lifted a hand to stop him. "No blood, no foul," he said, flashing his brilliant teeth. He moved to sit on the edge of Tyler's bed, facing me. He smiled again, a soft expression. "So, what's the verdict?" he asked me. "There's nothing wrong with me at all, but they won't let me go," I said quietly. "How come you aren't strapped to a gurney like the rest of us? How come?" "It's all about who you know," he answered gently. "But don't worry, I came to spring you." Then, a doctor walked around the corner, and my mind felt a small jolt of quiet wonder. He was young, blonde, and handsomer than any movie star I'd ever seen. He was pale, though, and tired-looking. This had to be Edward's father. "So, Miss Swan," Dr. Cullen said in a remarkably calm voice, "how are you feeling?" "I'm fine," I said, for what felt like the 100th time. He walked to the light board on the wall over my head and turned it on. "Your x-rays look good," he said. "Does your head hurt? Edward said you hit it pretty hard." "It's fine," I repeated with a sigh, giving a quick, soft scowl toward Edward. The doctor's cool fingers probed lightly along my skull. He noticed when I winced. "Tender?" he asked. "Not really. I'd had worse." And no, I heard a small chuckle and looked over to see Edward's gentle, patient smile. My eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, your father is in the waiting room. You can go home with him now, but come back if you feel dizzy or have trouble with your eyesight at all." "Can't I go back to school?" I asked, imagining Charlie trying to be attentive. "Maybe you should take it easy today. We'll hope it can be. Bergslagsti pertains Frida's watching birds. I glanced at Edward. Does he get to go to school? Someone has to spread the good news that we survived, Edward said with a calm, serene look. Actually, Dr. Cullen corrected, most of the school seems to be in the waiting room. Oh no, I moaned softly, covering my face with my hands. Dr. Cullen smiled a little. Do you want to stay? No, I insisted, throwing my legs over the side of the bed and hopping down quietly. Too quickly, I staggered, and Dr. Cullen caught me. He looked a little concerned. I'm fine, I assured him again. Take some Tylenol for the pain, he suggested as he steadied me. It doesn't hurt that bad, I insisted. It sounds like you were extremely lucky, Dr. Cullen said, smiling as he signed my chart with a flourish. Lucky Edward happened to be standing next to me, I said, with a calm, direct glance at the subject of my statement. Oh well? Yes, Dr. Cullen agreed, suddenly occupied with the papers in front of him. Then he looked away at Tyler and walked to the next bed. My intuition flickered. The doctor was in on it, a part of the quiet, beautiful secret. As soon as the doctor's back was turned, I moved to Edward's side. Can I talk to you for a minute? I asked in a low whisper. He took a small step back from me, his jaw suddenly clenched. Your father is waiting for you, he said softly. I glanced at Dr. Cullen and Tyler. I'd like to speak with you alone if you don't mind, I pressed. He gave me a quiet look, then turned his back and strode down the long room. I nearly had to run to keep up. As soon as we turned the corner into a short hallway, he spun around to face me. What do you want? He asked, sounding a little annoyed. His eyes were cold, but his voice was a low hum. His unfriendliness was a quiet challenge. My words came out with a gentle, firm tone. You owe me an explanation, I reminded him. I saved your life. I don't owe you anything, he said, his voice holding a subtle hint of resentment. I did not flinch, but simply stood my ground. You promised. Bella, you hit your head. You don't know what you're talking about. His tone was quiet, but it was like a perfectly delivered line by a skilled actor. My inner resolve grew. There's nothing wrong with my head. He looked back at me, his gaze steady. What do you want from me, Bella? I want to know the truth, I said calmly. I want to know why I'm lying for you. What do you think happened? He asked, his voice a quiet snap. The words came out in a gentle rush, a series of serene, unbelievable truths. All I know is that you weren't anywhere near me. Tyler didn't see you either. That van was going to crush us both, and it didn't, and your hands left dents in the side of it, and you left a dent in the other car, and you're not hurt at all, and the van should have smashed my legs, but you were holding it up. The words trailed off, a quiet realization of how strange it sounded, but my heart was calm. He was staring at me in quiet disbelief, but his face was tense and his guard was up. You think I lifted a van off you? His tone questioned my sanity, but it only made me more sure of what I had seen. I merely nodded once, my jaw quiet and firm. Nobody will believe that, you know? His voice held an edge of calm derision now. I'm not going to tell anybody, I said, each word slow and careful. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. Then why does it matter? It matters to me, I insisted. I don't like to lie, so there'd better be a good reason why I'm doing it. Can't you just thank me and get over it? Thank you. I waited, feeling a quiet, firm expectation. You're not going to let it go, are you? No. In that case, I hope you enjoyed disappointment. We simply looked at each other in a peaceful silence. I was the first to speak, trying to keep my mind focused. It was like trying to stare down a beautiful silent angel. "Why did you even bother?" I asked softly. He paused, and for a brief moment, his stunning face was unexpectedly vulnerable. "I don't know," he whispered. And then he turned his back on me and walked away. I was so filled with a calm, righteous anger that it took me a few minutes to be able to move. When I could walk, I made my way slowly to the exit at the end of the hallway. The waiting room was more quiet than I'd feared. It seemed like every face I knew in Forks was there, staring at me. Charlie rushed to my side. "There's nothing wrong with me," I assured him gently. "What did the doctor say?" "Dr. Cullen saw me, and he said I was fine and I could go home." I sighed. Mike and Jessica and Eric were all there, beginning to approach us. "Let's go," I urged. Charlie put one arm behind my back, not quite touching me, and led me to the glass doors of the exit. I waved shyly at my friends, hoping to convey that they didn't need to worry anymore. It was a huge, beautiful relief to get into the cruiser. We drove in silence. I was so wrapped up in the mystery that I barely knew Charlie was there. I was positive that Edward's defensive behavior was a quiet confirmation of the bizarre, beautiful things I had witnessed. When we got to the house, Charlie finally spoke. You'll need to call Renee." He hung his head, a little guilty. I felt a small sense of calm shock. "You told Mom?" "Sorry." I slammed the cruiser's door a little harder than necessary on my way out, a small and final release of energy. My mom was a soft, hysterical sound on the phone, but I calmly told her I felt fine at least 30 times before she would settle down. She begged me to come home, but her pleas were easy to resist. I was consumed by the quiet mystery Edward presented, and more than a little intrigued by Edward himself. I decided I might as well go to bed early that night. Charlie continued to watch me with a quiet anxiety, and I took some Tylenol from the bathroom. As the pain eased, I drifted into sleep. That was the first night I dreamed of Edward Cullen.